Folks, the weaponization of law enforcement and the justice system is out of control. And we've watched it happen at the federal level during the Biden administration. It really came to a head between the J6 prosecutions. And, of course, we had the Russia Gate hoax before that. I mean, the examples at the federal level are just everywhere. But this is something that's become a problem at the local and the state level as well. And nobody knows that better than our next guest. We're going to bring him on in just a moment. But he was viciously targeted by prosecutors for trying to protect his family and his property. I'm sure you heard the story. I hope you'll appreciate this inside look at what happened. I'm Alex Newman. This is Conversations That Matter for the New American Magazine. Thank you for being with us. Our guest today is Mark McCloskey. He's an American attorney, and you probably remember seeing him on television screens across the country, standing in front of his home with his wife, armed, trying to protect their home from rioters, vandals, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and all the rest of them during the George Floyd mostly peaceful protests. Yeah. Yes. The couple ended up being charged with unlawful use of a weapon, even though they never fired a shot. They never left their property. This is, of course, a felony. They were able to eventually overturn that with a pardon from Missouri Governor Mike Parson. But, folks, it just continued, right? He had his law license suspended, and I mean, just unbelievable things happened. Mark, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us. Before we get into what you're doing now, I know you're defending J6 individuals, trying to get them justice in the courts, and we're grateful for that. And we want to talk about what's happening at the national level too. But give the folks a little bit of an update. I mean, you were on everybody's television screen there for a time. Give the folks an update. What happened? Where are you at now? And what happened with that whole case?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on the show. You gotta appreciate that in the spring of 2020, it's been a while now, 5 years. People forget. One of the things that the left counts on is the short memory of human beings. But when that career criminal drug addict up in Minneapolis died of a fentanyl overdose, it set in motion a pre-planned attempted revolution in this country. On the night of June the 1st and June the 2nd of 2020 in downtown St. Louis, the BLM Antifa mob rioted. They burned downtown St. Louis. They shot 4 police officers, killed retired police captain David Dorn about a half a mile from my house. The most impressive thing my wife and I saw that night was a 7-Eleven in downtown St. Louis, 2 blocks from the police headquarters. Brick goes through the window. They loot it empty. They set it on fire. 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes. We watch it burn on a live TV feed. You know how many police showed up? 0. How many firemen showed up? 0. I looked at my wife and I said, when the mob comes your way, you're on your wild lonesome. Well, one of the advantages of living in a city where your prosecutor is hired by George Soros is you can advertise your crimes in advance because you know there's going to be no repercussion. So this Antifa organization in St. Louis called Expect Us, run by now ex-Congresswoman Cori Bush and a city alderman, what's his name? Rasheen Aldridge, announced that they're going to have a mob action in my neighborhood on the night of June the 28th, 2020. And because we knew they liked to burn things, and there were things in our house, including us, we didn't like to have burned, went out and got fire extinguishers and put them all over the house. Because we knew they liked to shoot people, and we made a decision we weren't going down without a fight, I put a whole bunch of guns around the first floor of the house. Make a long story short, that night we were having a barbecue out on the patio. We start hearing the mob form down the street, hear all the same old dumb chants, whose streets, our streets, no justice, no peace, no racist police. And my favorite one, because it's being chanted by Cori Bush on our megaphone, is, you can't stop the revolution, right? So we're looking out on Kings Highway Boulevard. We're in a private neighborhood with a gated community with a big sign that says no trespassing. And the only thing separating us now from the mob is a 130-year-old iron gate. And I look at my wife and I say, God, I sure hope they don't come this direction. Just then they crush through the gate, fold the gate down, hundreds of them storming in, all screaming and chanting and hollering and challenging us. Well, my wife and daughter, then 30, went into the house to call 911. I went out to the corner of my porch and I said what I always call the 2 most racist, white supremacist words in the English language. I said private property. Now, being communist, that pissed them off. And they start swarming in more and more and more. Well, so I reached around the corner where I had a stage and I grabbed my AR-15 and I'm standing on the porch saying all kinds of mean, nasty things. And now there's hundreds, there's 350 to 500 of these people standing out there screaming at me, death threats, I'm going to burn you, we're going to kill you, I'm going to burn your house, I'm going to burn your office building, even threatened to kill my dog. And I'm saying mean, nasty things like private property, get out of my neighborhood. I used a bad word once. I said, get the hell out of my neighborhood. But now I still think my wife's in calling the cops, which was completely worthless. Then she walks by her glass front doors and sees a mob coming up the steps towards the house and knows I cannot see that from where I am. So she grabs that little dumbass Bryco pistol and goes out in the front lawn and is waving that little dumbass pistol at the mob, now 3 or 4 feet from the closest gangster, right? And she's between me and the crowd, so now I've got a problem because she's in my line of fire. And so if I need to do something, I could accidentally hit her. And we'd been married 35 years. I didn't want to accidentally, put a pellet in her. So then I had to come out in the front porch, and that's when you see all those famous pictures. But that's the advantage of the Second Amendment, right? 2 of us with just 2 guns. My wife had never had a gun in her hand before. Wouldn't have worked if she tried to, but held off a mob of hundreds threatening to kill us. And the clip that every news media played, that 32-second clip, was the last 32 seconds after the entire mob had gone away and just a handful of people were left. But I got to tell you, being faced by hundreds of people screaming death at you for 17 and a half minutes is hard to take. I will very briefly tell your audience what they don't know, because it didn't get reported, because it didn't fit the narrative of peaceful social justice protesters walking calmly by my house. We got a tip the next Tuesday morning that they were coming back on Friday to kill us. An African-American client of ours who'd become a brainwashed member of this Antifa organization called us up Tuesday morning and said, what you guys did was inexcusable. You're going to have to die. They're coming back on Friday. They're going to kill you and burn down your house. Very long story, very short. We couldn't get any security, but I'd gotten a call from the White House on Tuesday saying the president wants to express his support. And if there's everything we can do for you, let us know. Well, Thursday night, and the mob's coming back the next day to kill us, I called that number back and I said, well, that was a pretty stinking good time. So he gave me Mark Meadows' cell phone number, and I got a hold of Mark. The next call I made was to Tucker Carlson. Tucker put us live on the air and said, I'm talking to Mark McCloskey. I can hear Mrs. McCloskey sobbing in the background. The mob's coming back tomorrow to kill them. The city police have been ordered to stand down. The state's not going to give them any protection. If we don't do something, they're going to get killed. Next night, it's about 6:30, the miracle starts to happen. People started showing up. By the time the mob hit the gate that night at 7 o'clock, now numbering 1,000, we had 6 ex-Navy SEALs. We had 10 secondary employment cops. We had the FBI light aircraft circling the top of the house. We had snipers on the rooftop. We had what we used to call in the Reagan administration, peace through superior firepower. And the one story I always like to tell is, once again, here's Cori Bush right in front of my gate, leading the mob, chanting into her megaphone, you can't stop the revolution. You can't stop the revolution. Well, Jim, the Navy SEAL standing next to me, resting his hands on the butt of his M4, says, oh, yes, I can. And they did.
Wow, what a story. I didn't know a lot of that, Mark, so thank you for sharing. Truly incredible. And of course, the tables have turned somewhat. The adults in the room have retaken control in Washington and various other parts. But you were charged. You were prosecuted by a rogue prosecutor. Now, they didn't ultimately succeed. I know they wanted to come after you and destroy you. Talk to us about what happened with the case.
Sure. And my wife and I got charged with 2 Class C felonies each, which would cost us 4 years in prison, and our law licenses, our careers, our everything. The governor, President Trump came out on TV with Judge Janine a couple of days later and said that we'd done nothing wrong and that he supported us. Our governor, Mike Parson, went on national television the next day and said that no matter what would happen, he'd pardon us. Problem with pardon in Missouri law is that the governor can't pardon us until we're found guilty of something. So we eventually arranged to plead guilty to a couple of minor misdemeanors like parking tickets, paid our fines, and we thought that'd be the end of it. But then the Bar Association decided that what we did in defending ourselves was a crime of moral turpitude, and we weren't fit to be lawyers anymore and wanted to pull our licenses. Well, what eventually happened was we got a 6-month suspension of our law licenses, probated for a year, so if we continue to be good little boys and girls, we could continue to practice law. Well, and then I wanted to get those 2 guns back. They seized those 2 guns, and the Court of Appeals ruled that the governor's pardon obliterated our conviction, but not our guilt, so I didn't get my guns back. Well, we appealed that, and then we got expunged, and then the state appealed our expungement. On July 1st of this year, the Court of Appeals ruled that our expungement was good, that expungement in Missouri means it's as if the underlying event never happened. And so I filed a new motion saying, look, under the law in Missouri, I've never been charged with anything. I've never been arrested. I've never been convicted. Why the hell do you have my guns? Well, we're going to have a hearing on that on Thursday of this week. And I suspect that after that, I'll get my friends back.
Well, good. We wish you Godspeed in recovering your property, sir. So you're on to new adventures now. You are working with the people who were ruthlessly persecuted on January 6th. I suspect there's a little bit of camaraderie there. Talk to us about what's going on that front. Of course, we know Trump pardoned everybody, but there's still the issue of horrific injustice perpetrated against hundreds, if not more, innocent Americans who were there to peacefully make their voices heard, not rioting, not burning down cities, not attacking people. Talk to us about what you're working on right now on that front.
Sure. I'm teamed up with a guy named Peter Ticktin, who went to military school with Donald Trump and has been a friend and lawyer of his since. We were now representing hundreds of J6 political prisoners. There were a total of 1,583 American citizens arrested that day or subsequent to that day. Most of them are just moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas who walked through doors to the Capitol, opened for them by the Capitol Police, fist bumped the cops, sang the national anthem, talked to the policemen, chanted USA, USA, walked out, didn't touch anything, take anything, break anything, get in any altercations. And then days, weeks, months, sometimes 2 years later, all of a sudden the FBI shows up on their front door with tanks and battering rams and helicopters circling the top of their houses, kicking in their doors, 30 laser dots on their 4-year-old kids. Guy I'm filing a report today, 4-year-old kid, 30 laser sights on the 4-year-old kid's chest, right? For misdemeanor trespass charges.
Oh, wow.
This is the FBI, the United States of America, storming, swatting people's houses for misdemeanor trespass charges. Then they'd get hauled into court. People got prison time in United States federal prisons for trespass that they didn't even do because they were invited in by the cops. And everything you see, I got to tell you, it was a completely peaceful protest. They got the east side of the Capitol building where there's nothing going on and people just walked in, thanked the cops and walked out. On the west side, everything was peaceful. Everybody's just chanting and singing the national anthem and singing God Bless America. At about 2:20 p.m., for whatever reason, the Capitol Police and Metro Police decided to launch an assault. And they started throwing flashbang grenades into the crowd, tear gassing people, chemical gassing people, beating people. And that's what you saw on television. Completely peaceful up until, well, there's a guy named Derek Vargo who got pushed off the wall at 2:16 by a Capitol policeman, horribly injured, which was kind of the impetus for the rest of it. But I mean, a flashbang grenade is not a benign thing. People are having the skin blown off their faces. People got one of our guys with a rubber bullet right through his face. I mean, the cops launched this assault on the people, and some people defended themselves. If you defended yourself by putting up your hand to deflect the blow of a police baton, that was called assault on a federal agent with a dangerous or deadly weapon. Defending yourself was assault on a federal. People got years in prison. People who, like Enrique Tarrio, who wasn't even in D.C. that day, got 22 years in prison. One of the charges against him was destruction. Count 6 of his indictment was destruction of government property, one of those bicycle barricades. Not that he asked other people to do it, not that he conspired to do it, but that he himself did it. He was in Baltimore that day. He must have the longest gosh darn arms in the human race. But, that's how unfair. Everybody was presumed guilty, almost 100% conviction rate. Anybody that went to trial was found guilty on all counts. I've got one client that actually got acquitted, right? One client. And even if you didn't get arrested, even if the FBI only came to your place of employment and started asking questions, the media destroyed you. Everybody's careers were ruined. Everybody's public reputation was ruined. Their families disowned them. Their kids disowned them because they were labeled as seditionists, as insurrectionists, as treasonous criminals. And a vast majority of these people to this day are just being intimidated, harassed, harangued, and unable to get employment. Some people are fairly well-known professionals and actors and comedians. One guy's living in his van right now, and it's just because what the government wanted to do, what the Biden administration did in setting up the January 6th protest, they wanted to send 3 messages. They wanted to intimidate everybody in the country, all the normal rank and file, to say, if you stand up against the government, we will crush you. We will destroy you. We will make you wish you'd never been born. For the million or so people that showed up in D.C. that day, what the specific message to those people was, we're going to collect up the most ardent Trump supporters in the country, and then we're going to crush them. We're going to destroy them. We're going to bankrupt them. We're going to imprison them. We will give them the maximum possible punishment for whatever we claim they did, and we will coerce them into confessing the things they didn't do for the fear of going to prison for the rest of their lives on totally bogus charges. And I can't tell you how many people have told me that their judges declared them guilty before there was any evidence heard. And punishing them specifically for being Republicans, specifically for supporting Donald Trump. And once again, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where the judges and the prosecutors say, if you would just say that Donald Trump put you up to all of this, we'll give you a reduced sentence. Thank God all these patriotic Americans, nobody was willing to lie. Nobody was willing to roll on the president to save their own behinds. These were true patriots, true Americans. And thank God that Donald Trump pardoned these folks. There are still 13 that he hasn't pardoned, members of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. But we're working on getting those guys pardoned too. Their sentences were commuted, but they were not pardoned. But this was the most egregious. Somebody high up, whether it was Christopher Wray or Merrick Garland or whoever was actually acting as president of the United States when the incompetent was in charge, somebody gave the order that January 6th political prisoners should be treated more harshly in the manner of their arrests, the manner of their persecution, and the manner of their incarceration than any other defendants in the history of America. And that was just to punish and to send a message that if you stand up against the left, there's only one unforgivable crime in America today, and that's standing up against the left. And they never forget and they never forgive. But by God, we're going to do something to change that right now.
Yeah, amen. It was horrific, and I have personally talked to many of the people who endured that kind of stuff. You're exactly right. Little children ripped out of their beds with guns pointed at them because parents entered the Capitol building after being invited in. Truly horrific scenes. Mark, what do you think? Are we out of the woods yet? Has the tide turned, or is there a risk that these radicals will regain power and come after all their enemies once again?
Well, you know what Lenin said back in 1917, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I'm afraid that the left can endure 3.5 more years of Donald Trump, because who else has got his force of will? Who else has got his character that will really sacrifice everything to stand up against this? We have to do everything we can. If we could get super majorities and if we get 60 senators, which we won't, we might be able to fix this. I am terribly concerned that this is a small blip of freedom in an endless progression towards totalitarianism. Ho Chi Minh said this. I'm old enough to remember the Vietnam War. Ho Chi Minh said the Americans can never win in Vietnam because they think in terms of today and tomorrow, and we think in terms of forever. And that's what we always have to remember, that these people will never give up. They will never relent. They've been doing this for longer than anybody's been alive, and they will not give up until they're forced to give up. These folks are evil. You cannot compromise with them. You have to defeat them, or they will come back to strangle you down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you recommend, Mark? I mean, what should Donald Trump be doing? What should the Congress be doing? What should everyday Americans be doing who do want to preserve freedom and do want to prevent this totalitarian takeover?
What needs to happen is the people that set all this up, going back to Russia, going back to the Ukraine impeachment, going back to the BLM riots, going up to the 2020 election, going up to this election cycle, people need to go to jail. The people that set up this conspiracy, the people that conspired, and now we have the actual documents showing who conspired, Clapper and Brennan and all these folks, Comey, they need to actually get prosecuted for the treason they engaged in and go to prison. If there's not actual consequences, the American people will lose all faith in the government.
You're right. And what about everyday folks? What can normal people do to try to bring about this result?
And spend every day of your life recognizing that you alone are responsible for your own freedom. Research the candidates, vote for people that actually represent freedom, democracy, and our democratic republic, and don't listen to what they say. Watch what they actually do, and vote for people that really want to put America first. Vote for people that really want to put individual freedom above totalitarianism. And if enough people stand up, we may be able to actually win this thing. I sure as heck hope so.
Yeah, me too. Mark, is there any way for people to follow you? Are you on social media? Is there any way people can subscribe to what you're doing?
I'm on X at McCloskey USA. My law firm site is McCloskey Law, MCCLOSKEYLAW.com, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. Peter Ticktin's is PT at legalbrains.com. And I'll do one better. I'll give everybody my personal cell phone number, and that's 314-580-3185. Any J6ers out there, if you haven't already contacted somebody, get a hold of them. There's safety in numbers. There's strength in numbers. The president's on our side. We need to make sure that he understands how urgent this is and how desperate the straits are for a lot of J6ers whose lives have been destroyed and need to be restored.
Amen. Mark McCloskey, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for standing firm and fighting back. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thanks for having me on. It's been my pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, folks, you heard it. Share this out. We really need people to stand up. We really need people not to cower, because Mark is exactly right. If we don't take this threat seriously, it is going to result in the loss of freedom. I'm Alex Newman. This is The New American. Please share this out. Again, you can find us all over the place on Conversations That Matter and at thenewamerican.com. Subscribe to the print magazine. Until next time, thank you all for listening and watching. God bless you all.